Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Reveal Report. On this Friday, we kick off your weekend with some unbelievable information as we do bring to you every week. The Reveal Report, if you're new, welcome. Please like, subscribe, and share. And our topic of conversation usually has to do with that of the occult. It's my background. It's where I'm from. I spent over 12 years in the occult, learning about hidden knowledge, hidden information, divination, demonology, ghosts, and so much in the world of the paranormal. Some of the key figures that made an influence on me were that of the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren, especially Lorraine, where I got to meet, spend countless days talking to her on the phone. Sometimes I felt bad. I thought I talked her ear off. Got to meet her, went to Connecticut, met an amazing gentleman, her son-in-law, Mr. Tony Spera. Got to bring them to do a lecture in Toronto and spend some time with them as well. And he is a vast vessel of information and knowledge and has dedicated his life into opening up the doors and shining the light on that which is dark. He is currently in charge of the Warrens Occult Museum. He has been a consultant on several major motion pictures, and he's going to be joining me right here very, very shortly. So get ready, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get into it. He has a huge event coming up called Paracon this Halloween, and we're going to get him to describe what that event is. Tickets still available for that event, and exactly, what type of things you can find at the Warrens Occult Museum. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we are doing such amazing things because of you. We are over 12,000 people on Twitter, almost 10,000 subscribers on Telegram. It's incredible. We are almost 40,000 people on YouTube. This is insane. And it's all because of you, because many of you are looking for the light. So I appreciate you being here on this platform. So again, like, subscribe, and share. And without further ado, I'm going to bring out our co-host and author, Miss Jessie Czebotar. Jessie, welcome to the show.
Hey.
How are you?
Good evening, George. I'm doing great.
Great. Going to be a very interesting day. We're going to get into this topic of conversation, which is haunted items and the dangers in some of these items. And you're no stranger to this. Of course, you spent your life trying to give people warnings on this type of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've got so many stories between the two of us of all the paranormal things that happen with items.
It's unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring on our guest. But before I do, I found an interview with our guest on Fox. I said, wait a minute. He made it on Fox. And one of I think this guy's a great interviewer. And so I took this interview, and I'm going to play it for before I bring him on. And he gets into some very interesting topic of conversation. So I'm going to play it for you, everybody. Please sit back, take a listen. This is Tony Spera on Fox TV.
Halloween just days away, which means many of us are watching horror movies like Halloween, The Conjuring, Annabelle. But just how real are those haunting situations? My next guest says they're more real than you'd like to know. Paranormal researcher and demonologist Tony Spera joins me now. So, Tony, you believe in ghosts and the paranormal?
Oh, yes.
What makes you believe
Absolutely.
that?
Well, my faith, first of all, makes me believe it because, God is a supernatural being. And if you believe in God, which I do, then you need to believe that he created us in his image, which is a supernatural being, a spirit.
So what exactly is a ghost or a demon in our world look like?
A ghost would be a discarnate entity. In other words, Jesse, you have a spirit and a body. Mm-hmm. If you die, your body will wither away.
Right.
But you, as a spirit, will continue on.
So my spirit will then rise from my dead body.
Yes.
And what will my spirit do, and where will it go?
It'll go towards the light. In other words, everybody is offered the light. And it's up to you to decide if you're going to that light.
Oh, I'm going to the light, baby.
I hope so. I believe you will, because
Right.
if you're a good person, you're going to be offered the light and go towards that light, and that leads you to God and to heaven.
So if you reject the light, Is that what puts you in that other
Yes.
realm where you're a spirit
Yes.
here in Earth?
Yeah, absolutely. You got that right.
And what do you do as a spirit that hasn't seen the light and is floating around? Do
You
you
remain what we call earthbound.
and you mess with people? What is
Well,
your state of mind?
you could. I mean, in other words, there
You
are
scare
people-
us? Do you scare people?
Because there are people who maybe were tragically killed, murdered instantaneously. For instance, 9/11, where the planes went into the building, instantly gone. They're not even aware that they're dead. And they are confused. They're in a confused state, and they roam the earth looking for their house, looking for their relatives or whatever. Yes.
Well, I've seen people in a confused state roaming around, and they're pretty real. We've interviewed them on Wonders World. All right, listen, happy Halloween, Tony, and we'll look out for the paranormal.
Well, thank you, Jesse.
All right.
Appreciate it.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting interview. I thought I'd kick off the show with that. And without further ado, please welcome our guest, Mr. Tony Spera. Tony, how are you?
Hey, hi, George. How are you?
Good to
And,
see you. It's been a while. I think just over a year. I think we had you on last year for Halloween.
Yeah, I think you did, and it was fun then, and it's gonna be fun tonight. I appreciate you showing that clip. I was about 35, 40 pounds heavier. You know, I lost 40
Looking
pounds
good,
since then.
Tony.
Yeah, I lost 40 pounds just because I wanted to not be so fat, and but yeah, I appreciate that. They were good to me. They picked me up at the house with a limo and brought me to the studio. Judy came with me, but she didn't go on air. And Jessie Waters was very, very kind and very nice to me too. Everybody was nice to me there. And I watch that show anyway, even now, even today.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. And Tony, speaking of limo, I could have sworn I sent you a really nice car and you're a really nice town car, a Cadillac to pick you up when I got you to come to Toronto for a lecture. Did I not? Did I not at least
Yeah.
try to take care of you?
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
I
you
mean-
picked the car came and picked Lorraine and I up and brought us to the airport. And we flew to the Toronto airport, I believe.
Yeah.
And the funny part, I don't know if you, I think I might have told you this. The funny part is we never knew your last name.
Ha!
And because you went by the moniker George the Iceman.
Yes.
So I'm spelling out THE Iceman, the Iceman. So I'm like, hey, Lorraine, I can't find George the Iceman around. And the intercom lady's, she's on the intercom calling your name to meet us at the customer service desk. She's saying, well, George the Iceman, please come. And after when I met you, you started laughing because you said, that's not my name. I go by the Iceman. And that was so funny. But it was a great time. You took care of us. You took good
Thank
care
you
of
so
us.
much. It's so funny to add to that. I've had a couple of other, popular paranormal investigators, some that, we both know that were on A&E's hit show with Ryan Buell and a few
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
And they referred to me as also the Iceman, not knowing that wasn't my real last name, but it was quite interesting and funny, but it was just the moniker I was going by.
Yeah.
Tony,
yeah.
one of the key things that is going on, we are just a few weeks away from October. Now, in the month of September, a lot of occultists do practice certain rituals based on stars, moons, and ancient tradition.
Right.
But October, right around the corner, we get into a dark place.
Yeah.
And some people like to be calm and have fun with it. The
Right.
good people, at least, like to have fun with it. We're going to watch some horror movies, go to a couple of Halloween parties on the upper, happier side, because that's what they feel. But there is a darkness to Halloween. Some very dark things happen.
Yes.
And those things that happen that go bump in the night, you get to investigate or had Lorraine investigate certain houses that practice certain rituals and occult
Right.
ceremonies. And this energy, this negative energy that they summon always seems to attached to a certain thing. So maybe if you could take it away and tell us a little bit about attachments and haunted items.
Oh yeah. Well, attachments are very real. When you go to a church or a chapel, a temple, especially when I go to a Catholic church and I put out an artifact and I say, Father, to the priest, can you please bless this item for me? Be it a cross, be it a medal, a crucifix, rosary beads, whatever it may be. And the priest blesses it using authority from God as an ordained member of the clergy. he's acting almost as if as an intercessor for God and using the authority given to him by God to infuse those objects with positivity, with pious blessings from God. But these other artifacts, the other side, the unblessed type, the ones that are used in rituals, incantations, through black witchcraft, for instance, through Satanistic practices, through sorcery, wizardry, these objects can be infused with negative vibrations, basically the opposite of something holy or the opposite of something blessed. And sometimes they are even beckoned by satanic cults and things to infuse evil within, to have evil attachments assigned to that object and then put out throughout the world for people to pick up and grab and unknowingly use and have problems. So yes, demonic entities, devils, demons, they can attach themselves to regular household objects. Now, having said all that, George, just to make the audience out there feel a little bit better, a human entity, someone, say you're a relative, could never attach themselves to an object or be within an object, for instance, possessing an object. You know, you're never going to find your grandmother in your living room chair.
Yeah.
You're never going to find them in the television set. You're never going to find them anywhere because God, the laws of the universe don't allow it, and God doesn't allow it. But the devil can do things that human entities cannot do. So a demonic entity can do that, can infuse these objects, or people through very dark rituals can infuse these objects with evil and diabolical obsessions. So that's why we have to be careful. We get a lot of people who say they bought an object somewhere without knowing the history, and that evening or the next day they would have a problem in their homes, and they would immediately tell us, you know, I never had a problem whatsoever in my whole life until I bought this object, and that night I started to see shadows. I started to see knockings and hear my name being called out, whatever it may be, something that scared them, and they attribute it, of course, to that object.
And for those who think this is hogwash, I'm telling you, this is one of the key elements on beginning a type of infestation in a person's life. Many witches and those who practice the occult do it by giving you a gift. And when you accept that gift of your own free will and bring it into your home, well, then you've given the universe permission to allow these negative entities to wreak havoc upon you. One of the very key things that I always refer to, and it sounds horrible, but it's one way of getting into your home, is toys. And I'll say this, Tony, that last year we did a special live event, and we went to a certain location in Florida where they have a graveyard with a particular chair. Some say it's Lucifer's chair, Satan's chair. And at a particular time at night, you would sit in this chair and you would summon these evil entities or Lucifer himself. On that note, I noticed near a grave some toys. And I went, wow, okay. Now the toys were next to this evil type of chair. And what I told everyone that was there, and Jessie was with me at that time, I said, this is a perfect example, ladies and gentlemen, of casting spell casting. They are harnessing energy, trying to use the power that's in this grave, in this area, and by this throne here, to put negative energy, a negative connection into these toys that they're going to give to their enemy. They're going to give it to the child. Child's going to bring it home and open the doors. And you know what, Tony? You'll never guess what happened after we started making our way down to the bus, to the next stop.
What happened?
A couple of girls came looking for those toys. Young girls dressed out in black. I mean, if I had to make an example, the Lord God shined his light upon me and said, there's your proof. And they were livid because one of our people took those toys so they wouldn't be able to be used for any kind of magic spirits, spells, or incantations. So that really happens. And Tony, you have in your depths there in this museum artifacts that have haunted cantations. And one of
Correct.
them specifically is something that I find very interesting. And it's this right here. This is the Annabelle doll, which a movie was made about, and many documentaries, many stories about the Annabelle doll. And some viewers may be new to our program and to the story. So I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind sharing the story of this Annabelle doll.
Absolutely. You know, it looks like a very benign, cute little toy or a doll. It's a Raggedy Ann doll that you can purchase in any store, and it's been on sale for years and years in different heights and different variations. And so it looks very innocent. It doesn't look like it can do any harm to anything at all. But a different story appeared when it came to this doll, because way back 1970 and 71, perhaps, I'm not sure the exact year, I thought it was 70, uh, a woman went into a store, into a thrift store, and bought this Raggedy Ann doll for her daughter, who was a nurse at Hartford Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut. And the mother didn't know anything about the doll, just thought it was a nice, cute little doll. So she purchased the Annabelle doll, brought it home. I'm sorry, the Raggedy Ann doll, brought it home, and then gave it to her daughter, Donna, as a birthday gift, because her daughter liked dolls. And daughter was older, about 27, 28, but as a lot of young girls do, just like men like boys like cars, they like dolls. So gave her the doll, and Donna was very appreciative, took it all over the house with her, walked around with it, put it on the couch, put it on the bed with her, but started to notice some strange things shortly after beginning to happen. And the strange things were that the doll would be found in different locations when she and her roommate came home from their shift as nurses at the nearby hospital. They'd come home, and Don would say things like, I would have swore that when I put that doll down, her legs were uncrossed and her hands were uncrossed. Now they're both crossed. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Next time she comes home, knowing that she put or left the doll on the couch, she comes home and finds that the doll is now lying on her bed. So now she's starting to get a little bit worried, saying, maybe somebody's breaking into the apartment where we live. And she said, there's a young superintendent of the apartment. Maybe he's playing tricks on us. So why don't we do this? Why don't we tape the bottom of the entry door with Scotch tape, clear tape on the bottom? We'll do such and such things where if they open that door, we're going to know it if somebody comes in our apartment when we're not home. So she sets the doll at a certain location. They leave. She tapes the door near the bottom. They go on their shift. They come back. She looks. Nothing's changed. The tape is perfectly intact. She opens the door. The doll is no longer where she put it. She had it on the couch. Now it's in the bedroom. So she's starting to get a little freaked out about this whole thing. And then one night, she found a piece of parchment paper underneath the bed. And written in crayon was a note that said, "Help me." And then another note, another time, that said, "Help Lou." And they had no parchment paper in the house. The top off of the whole thing, which brought this to a head, was one day they were having breakfast, her nurse roommate and Donna, and they're having breakfast, and they had the doll sitting next to them at the breakfast nook. Out of nowhere, the doll's flimsy little Raggedy Ann arms, the flimsy arms levitated off, up, and onto the tabletops, both arms. Now, I don't know about you, George. Even me as a seasoned investigator would be a little startled by that, But instead of being afraid or so frightened, they were more intrigued by what happened. And the roommate nurse to Donna looked at her and said, "Hey, she must be trying to tell us something. I know a psychic. Why don't we call in my friend who's a psychic, and we'll have a seance and find out what she wants?" And that's what they did. That night, this friend brought in the psychic, and they sat around the table in a seance type of a position. And the seance happened where the psychic concentrated and said to them, "I'm picking up the spirit of a young girl. She was outside your apartment and got killed in an automobile accident. And she's about 7 years old. Her name is Annabelle. That's what she told Donna and the other nurse. And they bought it hook, line, and sinker, figuring there's a human spirit now in that doll because the doll had moved. So they're thinking there's something in the doll. So that was okay. They started to treat the doll even more like a human being than ever before. And the thing that brought Ed and Lorraine in was this. One day, Lou, who was Donna's fiance, was sleeping on the couch. On the other end of the couch was the doll, the Raggedy Ann doll that they now called Annabelle. With a start, he wakes up. He's sweating. He's incoherent. He's shaking. His heart's beating fast. And he's just in disarray. And Donna looks at him and says, "Hey, Lou, what happened? What's the matter with you?" And he says to her, "I had the worst nightmare I ever had." And she said, "What?" He said, "I had a nightmare. I had a dream that doll was crawling up my leg while I was sleeping and got to my neck and was strangling me to death." And he gets scared. So, as a macho guy does, he picks the doll up off the couch. He throws it across the room and he says, "That doll is just a Raggedy Ann doll. That can't hurt anybody." He's probably trying to ease himself, And when he said that, there were 7 psychic wounds that appeared on Lou's chest and stomach. 4 across the chest horizontally, 3 on the stomach vertically, as if someone took a surgical scalpel and went through his t-shirt and caused 7 bloody wounds. Now, Donna, Lou, and the nurse are freaked out. They know now that, wait a minute, this cannot be a 7-year-old girl that was killed outside the apartment inhabiting that doll. That's something dire. That's something dark. That's when they called an Episcopal priest who lived in the Hartford area. And the Episcopal priest said, "I don't know how to deal with that, but I know who does. Why don't you call Mr. and Mrs. Warren?" And that's what they did. They called Ed and Lorraine. Ed and Lorraine did come out to the apartment, interviewed the girls. It's in the Conjuring 1 movie right at the beginning. Interviewed the girls. That part's all true. And the girls told a story on film. And Ed said, "Well, I know what that is. We have to get a priest in here to do some exorcisms of the house and of blessings of you girls." Then the girls said, "Well, what are we going to do with the doll?" And we don't want it. So Ed said, "I'll take it back to the museum." And that's what he did. First, he had a Catholic priest come in and exorcise the house and do blessings over the 2 girls. Then he took the doll back and did have problems with his car on the way back.
Wow.
But that's not the end of the story, George. If you want to hear the whole story, I'll
Absolutely. Yeah. I want you to get into it so people understand how real this is.
Okay. Ed took it back to his museum. He had trouble with his car. It kept stalling on him, and it never did before. It was like jerking over the road, trying to go towards the curb and everything. He pulled over, and he opened the back door where Annabelle was, and he sprinkled her with holy water. And that calmed her down enough so he can drive her all the way home. He placed her in the museum in a chair. He didn't have a case built or anything because he didn't know he'd be taking her home. He put her in a chair in a corner, and that's where she sat for a long time. Well, here's why we believe Annabelle had such power and such bad power, is that a priest named Father Bill Charbonneau, who's now deceased, was a good friend of Lorraine. He called her up one night. He bought a new car, and he wanted to travel to Monroe and show her his new car and Ed. She said, "Come on over, Father." He drove from Hartford to Monroe, which is about 45, 50 miles, on Interstate 84, and showed them the new car. And then Lorraine invited them in for tea and for lunch and everything, which he had. And then while he's talking to both of them, he looks over at Ed, and he says to Ed, because Ed was talking about the dollar people in his lectures, he says to Ed, "Hey, Ed, can I see that doll that puts slashes on people I heard so much about?" And Ed says, "Yeah, come on down, Father. I'll show you." He brings Father Bill down to the museum. He's walking around showing some of the artifacts when he first enters, like the haunted organ and the conjuring mirror and things like that. Then he gets to the doll, which is in the corner, and he says, just make sure you don't touch anything, Father. Then he starts to explain about the doll, the whole story, just like I was doing. He gets to the part with Lou and the slash marks on Lou. And I guess the priest thought it was a joke. And Ed did have a little yellow piece of rope in front of the doll, like on a stanchion. He reaches over the stanchion, the priest, before Ed could stop him. He grabs the doll by both arms, just like Lou did, picks it up, throws it across the museum floor, and proclaims, God is more powerful than any devil or demon. Just like that. Ed's shocked, doesn't know what to do. Father, what are you doing? I just told you not to touch it. It's a very dangerous object. Father Bill goes, I don't care. God is more powerful than any devil or demon. And Ed looks at him and said, you know what? I'll tell you what, Father, you're right about that. God is more powerful than any devil or demon. But no human being is. No priest, Father. You shouldn't have touched it. Well, the father didn't want to know. He didn't care. He said, I'm protected. Well, he was protected, all right, until he started to get back to his rectory that evening. Nothing happened right away downstairs in the museum. When he's driving away, he gets on 84. He never made it to his rectory that evening. He went sideways, almost head on into a tractor trailer. Wow. And he totaled his brand new car that he received the day before. Totaled it out. He was injured, but fortunately, he was not killed. It was more of a warning. And why we know it's connected to Annabelle, we think, is that about 3 days later, Father Bill calls Ed up, wants to talk to him, and he's crying on the phone to Ed. Ed's like, Father, what's the matter? Why are you crying so much? And the priest says to Ed, I should have listened to you, that? I should have listened to you. And this is, what are you talking about? He goes, that doll. He goes, before I crashed on the highway, the last thing I can recall was looking in the rearview mirror and seeing an image of that doll in the mirror, and then I crashed the car.
Wow.
So now, was it Annabelle for sure? We don't know for sure. No one will ever know that for sure. But why would you want to take a chance and challenge the demonic? Especially after that, when a young man on a motorcycle came with his girlfriend. He was about 20 years old. This is about maybe 10 years later, maybe.
Yeah.
And the doll is now in the case that's attached to the wall, a glass and wood case, locked. It says positively do not open. That's the case. And Ed was giving a tour of the museum to a bunch of college kids, about 18 to 20 years old. And one of them was this man on a motorcycle with his girlfriend. And as Ed is talking, it was almost like a trigger word, As soon as he got to the thing about the slash marks, again, with describing what happened to Lou, this young man did almost the same thing as the priest. He runs up to the case, starts banging on the glass with his fingers. And he says, this is a bunch of BS. This is a joke. If that doll can hurt anybody, why don't he hurt me and put slashes on me right now? Just like that. And Ed had already told everybody, don't challenge evil, don't touch anything, be respectful. And this young man didn't. And Ed looked at him and his girlfriend, says, you and your girlfriend there, get out of here. I can't have that. I just got through telling you guys. And he thought it was a big joke, this kid. He was mocking it.
Yeah.
He's leaving the museum, smirking, saying, you guys are a bunch of jerks if you believe this nonsense. Cocky, And so that young man never made it home either, because we found out later that within 3 hours, he had lost control of that motorcycle with his girlfriend on the back and ran head on into a tree.
Wow.
Now, we think it was a doll there, too, because the young girl did not die. He died instantly. But she lived she was injured for many months in a hospital, and she recovered. But she said the last thing that she could recall was they were laughing and joking around about that doll when he lost control on a perfectly clear night, lost control, went right head on into a tree and was killed. So, was it the doll? Well, we believe it was. We can't prove it, of course.
Of course.
But we find it very unfortunate that somebody would challenge something like that, George. You have to be pretty crazy to challenge something that you know nothing about. Mm-hmm. It's like if I handed you, you know nothing about guns, and I hand you a gun and said, Don't worry about it, George. It's unloaded. What are you worried about? Just put it up to your head and pull the trigger. And you go, oh yeah, and you trust me, right? And you go, okay, yeah, I'll just pull the trigger. It's not loaded, and then you kill yourself. Jeez. I mean, because you don't know anything what you're doing, and you do it anyway. So it's not a good thing to challenge the demonic. And Ed always used to say to me, he'd say, it's okay to investigate the paranormal. It's okay to take photographs, to go to haunted locations as an investigator who wants to gather evidence. Yes. That was our whole job. Our whole career was to gather evidence so we could find help for these people that needed help. And the help always came in the form of clergy. It could be Catholic, could be Protestant, it could be Episcopal, it could be whatever the person's religion was and beliefs, to try to help rid those family of this demonic or dark energy. If it was a human entity that maybe remained earthbound, just a simple blessing of the house could free it, But it's not. It wasn't for Ed's glory or his entertainment to see a ghost or to photograph or record a ghost. He used to do this stuff so he can go back to a diocese and say, "Hey, look, this is what I found. This is what they got, a demonic entity, because this is what happened." And Ed would know the difference by his experience, what was demonic, and say to the priest, "This is documentation. Can you help these people?" That was his whole thing. It wasn't for like today's TV shows where they just want to get some glory and say, "Oh, look at that," or "Did you hear that?" or "Oh, I felt something touch me." That's not why you're there.
Yeah.
So what I also want to say is that people shouldn't be so frightened of everything that they think everything is demonic.
Yeah.
If you don't challenge it, if you don't dabble in occult practices, your chances of getting haunted or getting exposed by something or influenced by something demonic is about the same as getting struck by lightning.
Yeah.
Because it's just like people will say, well, I never saw a murder. I never saw anybody get robbed or anything. Well, that's because you're not a cop and you're not called to these things, right?
Yeah, 100.
They were called to these things. That's why they say, "Oh, you're always seeing ghosts, Ed." Yeah, because he was called there. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So the normal person doesn't really have to worry that much. It's only when you start to dabble and start
100%.
And lose your faith in the Lord, and I want to see a ghost, or somebody unfortunately might say, "Oh, I wish something happened to me so I could prove in my mind that there are demonic entity or that the ghosts do exist." That's not the way to do it. That's for your glory, and that's challenging, and that's doing things against God's will that way. I've never challenged the demonic in my life, and neither is Ed. Ed was in it for 50 years, and Lorraine, and he told me, he goes, "I use religious provocation, yes. And there's a difference between that and challenging. Religious provocation is trying to identify what is there. So in other words, if Ed is people are telling Ed that this happened in my house, I saw a dark entity, I saw books levitate off the shelf, I saw the refrigerator move. Ed starts to know that that's something demonic because the human spirit couldn't do it. Yeah. So Ed would say, trying to provoke, not challenge. In the name of Jesus Christ, in the name of Jesus Christ and the blood of Christ, I command you to reveal your identity. So what is that doing? He's invoking God's name for the entity to reveal its identity, not challenge. Challenge would be, "Hey, you, if you're here, come and do something to me right now."
Yeah.
That's challenging. But if you say in the name of Jesus Christ and the blood of Christ, I command you to reveal your identity, you're just asking in God's name to tell you who it is.
100%.
Big difference.
I want to add to that, Tony, before I get the opinion of Jessie here, is that, I like to watch some of the paranormal shows and see their approach. Unfortunately, and I'm not mocking everyone, because I come from a different school. I come from the school, your school, and the teachings of Lorraine. So I'm distraught on many of these investigators think this is fun. It's a joke. They think it's interesting, and they provoke and challenge at the same time. There's a difference because they don't use it in the name of Jesus Christ to get proof or help that family. Because 99.9%, everywhere these guys go, not once, Have they helped anyone in these investigations? They just want video evidence so they can have their own show. That's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why I pick and choose if I ever go to help anyone. I want all the details on this case, because if I'm going to put my energy, I'm going to do it and try to do the best I can to help you rid of that evil spirit. So on that note, Jessie, you heard Tony speak about this experience with the doll. You know a lot about my background. You were involved as a little girl in a certain group, occultically. Can you share with us an experience, or have you seen these type of evil things occur in front of you?
Absolutely, yeah. One of the grand high priestesses that I did training under participated in that type of form of really black magic with she would use doll houses and little dolls that she created. When people came to visit her, she would always cut off a piece of their hair, and then later she would sew that hair onto a little doll that she would make that would go into the dollhouse. Then she would create these scenes with those people's hair. So, like, if somebody in the occult who was underneath her got out of line, or she was done with them, she would create these horrific scenes in their dollhouse, and then it would come to pass. So she used it like a form of divination. So one of the instances I saw, she had taken one of the high priestesses and had this woman in her kitchen, stabbing herself with scissors. And then she sent that scene to that individual, and a week later, that individual tranced out in her kitchen and, was stabbing herself with scissors. So I have seen those higher level individuals use that form of divination and magic.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah.
is absolutely right. That's what she told you, what she said to the audience. That's absolutely correct. 100%.
Yeah.
That's what they do. And that's just like we have the shadow doll and we have the evil
Yeah.
board
Mhm.
in our museum where people do the exact same things, or trying to create a tulpa, like we have these masks in our museum where people try to replicate the ugly mask, like the Halloween style mask. They would put it on their head, and they would, through intense focus and other means and concentration and incantations too, they would try to create that monstrosity. And when they took the mask off, that their face would still look that way.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of stuff that we don't know a lot about. In other words, the general public knows not a lot about, so they shouldn't dabble. Just like the Ouija board. The Ouija board is a type of communication allowing you to work, or to not work, communicate with spirits. That's very dangerous because, like I said, you shouldn't communicate. Like Ed used to say, if you want to communicate with spirits, go to church. That's what he used to say.
Yes.
Because when you ask that question on that board, you put your hand on that plastic planchette and say, "Is this my grandma, Cecilia?" And it goes over to yes. And then you say, "Oh, Grandma Cecilia, what'd you buy me for my 16th birthday?" And it goes over to, "Oh, red dress or baseball tickets to the Toronto Blue Jays or something." And so you go, "Wow, that's correct. That's my Aunt Cecilia." But that's not it, because the demonic has the wisdom of the ages. And contrary to what people say when they say, well, the devil can't read your mind, I believe the devil can read your mind, like a mentalist can read your mind, where they can find out and know things about you without you knowing it. And so now you start to get sucked in saying, that's my grandma Cecilia, I'm talking to. So you can come anytime you want, Grandma, and talk to me. Well, but what you just do, because it wasn't your aunt or your grandma Cecilia, you just invited the demonic into your realm. You just opened your doorway to the demonic. And once you open your doorway, it's almost like an unwanted relative that comes over your house and you can't get rid of them. And they say, "I'm going to come over," but they don't give you an end date.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for you to, you thought they were going to stay 3 days, and 2 months later, they're still hanging out in your basement. It's the same thing with the demonic. They don't come. First of all, they don't come when you tell them to come. So when that guy challenged the Annabelle doll in the museum, It could have come a month later, 6 months later, a year later. It doesn't come when you say to come because it doesn't listen to you. You're a lowly human. But you invited them in. So it comes when it feels like coming, when it sees the opportunity, that the best time to come. And so when you open a door to the demonic realm, it's very, very, very difficult to close that door. So anyone who ever says, "Oh, I want to see a devil. I want to see a devil to make sure it's real," or someone who prays to the devil because they want a favor.
Yes.
So in other words, if I said, okay, I'm going to practice Satanism because I don't really like to work a lot, and I want to get a new Corvette, and I want to have a nice house worth like a couple $1 million. So if I worship Satan and ask him to help me, that'll be great. I'll get power that way. But the devil works in strange ways, though, because when you ask somebody a favor, George, don't they usually want something in return?
Always.
Always.
So you could ask for that, and you may get that Corvette, that $2 million house, or that girlfriend, or whatever you want. But you have to give them something back. What do you got to offer? They don't want the Corvette; they want your soul. The devil wants your soul, so you sell your soul to garner power so that he will give you something. And not only that, Satanists, how do they get power when they worship the devil? Not just by asking. They don't get power that way. They don't get favors just by asking. Their return is, yes, the soul, but to gain more power, more favor in the demonic's eyes, they do human sacrifice or animal sacrifices, because the devil hates us because we're created in God's image. Hates anything that God created, right? So it doesn't like animals, doesn't like babies, especially would like you to kill a baby. You know why? Because in the Satanist eyes, the younger and more innocent it is, the more power they get from the devil, because the devil's more appreciative.
100%.
So they do, and they kill babies. So never listen to a Satanist when they say we don't do stuff like that. We just want to. Their big line is, we just want to enrich our lives, our earthly belongings. Yeah, but they don't tell you how.
Yeah,
how they want to, you know what I mean?
I want to add to that, Tony, what you're saying, a few points, because it's incredible stuff. On the point of the babies, that's not a new tradition, ladies and gentlemen. This goes back to the Bible with the Canaanites. They made sacrifices of their own flesh and blood to these gods, the god of Baal. And it even goes back to Nimrod, ladies and gentlemen, and the goddess Isis and so forth. So this is very ancient practices passed on from generation to generation. And the occult basically means hidden knowledge. I wanted to address something that Tony said about the Ouija board, something I come to learn. I found it very interesting. You see, Tony, when I was into the occult, you would go to occultic shops because there you will find certain herbs that you need to use, or certain colored candles. And I don't want to get too much into it, but that's where you would go to get these things to create your ritual or spell that you're following. And I mention this because, you know what, the one thing, Tony, I never seen in a real occultic store, this is going to be fascinating for those who don't know. The one thing you'll never see in a real store of the occult is a Ouija board. You'll never buy a Ouija board at a real occult store. Why? Because the occultists, or those who practice Satanism or angel magic, Enochian magic is what it's referred to, or King Solomon magic, the lesser keys of Solomon, that type of stuff. And it goes on, Wicca and all that other jazz. You are told not to do the Ouija board. And Jessie, I want you to touch on that briefly, because you understand that coming from your bloodline and your life and what your family comes from. What's the one thing they tell you about the Ouija board?
Yeah, at the highest levels in the occult, they do not use the Ouija board. I was trained in Solomonic, Enochian, Gaoshan, and other forms of magic, and you do not use those. If you want to talk with a spirit or a demonic general, you're taught to just, do different forms of blood magic and talk directly to that being. You summon that being and have conversations with them. But that the Ouija board is seen as low level. It's seen as something that the unclean, I call them like all the little chicken demons at at the bottom of the rung, all those unclean spirits, and they won't mess with those because they're like a horde of oppression. Once once you get them, they're horrible to get rid of. But yeah, so at the highest levels, they do not use that at all.
Well, I wanted to make sure you guys are aware of that you know who buys these unbelievable artifacts, believe it or not, and they know it because most of these shops, like Toys R Us and so forth, a lot of the Christians think it's fun. And they go after the Christians
Yeah.
because they want to wreak havoc and evil and torment upon your life because of your beliefs in God Almighty. So they sell the children of Christians and those of high beliefs the Ouija boards, but to leave them away from the occultists. Isn't
Yeah.
that interesting? And
Yeah.
another thing, Tony, just to add, you were talking about artifacts, and some people are saying, is it possible? How is that possible? Let me explain something to you. In the books of Solomonic magic, if you understand who King Solomon was, really quickly, he is known as the most powerful magician in the history of history. In fact, those in the highest levels of magic who want to take over the world and bring on revelations that's in the Bible, these groups follow King Solomon. And do you know what King Solomon did? There's cartoons based on what he did. And that's a genie in a bottle. You know the old story where you rub a genie and out comes this wish, this ghost is going to come out and grant your wish. Well, that goes back to King Solomon, where he would do spells and curses to these demons and confine them in these bottles. So artifacts and spirit possession goes back to biblical times of King Solomon. So if you're asking, is it true? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's true.
Yep. Absolutely is.
Now, Tony,
Absolutely is.
I got a video clip here I want to play before we get into your next event with Lorraine,
Yeah.
yourself.
Mhm.
And this video is about the Conjuring series, which is a series of movies based on different investigations that you guys have done. And every,
Right.
I believe, show is based on a different type of investigation. I've seen them all, and a lot of them have a lot of truth in them. It's phenomenal. So I'm going to play this quick clip. It's an interview, has Lorraine, has Tony, and so forth. And I want everybody to take a look at it. This is basically the Conjuring series. So I want you to crank it up and take a look at it.
I remember meeting my husband. I had gone to the movies. Then when we left, there was a little ice cream parlor there. And he says, I'll buy all you girls a Coke. I never drank Coke in my life. I don't like Coke. And I ordered an ice cream soda. He told me from day one, he knew I was a gold digger.
He went into the Navy on his 17th birthday. When he came home on survivor's leave, she got married on that leave with him because his ship had gone down and he was only one of like 69 survivors on that ship. Ed was passionate, I mean passionate about helping people because Ed lived in a haunted house. He lived in a haunted house in Bridgeport, Connecticut from age 5 to age 12. So he said to me, when I got out of the Navy, I said, I'm gonna find out if other people had the same experiences that I did when I lived in that house.
From the time that I was about 7 years old, I remember seeing lights around people. I realized that I was communicating. My Catholic faith is very, very important to me and still is today, and that helped me to help others.
Ed, he was an artist. He went to art school for a couple years after the Navy, and he used to read about haunted houses. And he would drive to these places with Lorraine, and he would take a sketch pad and pencil with him, and he'd pull up in front of the house, he'd sketch the house, take about 30 minutes, and then he'd hand the sketch to Lorraine, and he'd say, Lorraine, do me a favor, go up to the house, knock on the door, They open the door and say, my husband sketched this nice sketch of your home. He wants you to have it. And he said, maybe they'll let us in and we can talk about the haunting that they have. And that's how they started.
Ed and Lorraine Warren, Tony Spera, unbelievable. And this location, the Warren Museum, is still there. You're the curator. You run
Right.
it. You're in charge of it. It's incredible. God bless you for everything you do. And you have an event coming up on
Yeah.
Halloween. It's kind of paying
Yeah.
homage to Ed and Lorraine. You're
Yes.
keeping it going, and I'm so grateful that you are. That's why I want you here, because that event is what I supported, and I went to Connecticut for those events and to support Lorraine and so forth. Got to see some guest speakers and so forth. So if you don't mind, Tony, just share us, what exactly are you doing? What are you presenting?
Yeah.
What is this event?
Well, we're doing what's called the Paracon or Paranormal Convention, and it's called the Warrens Seekers of the Supernatural Paracon. And it's going to be held in Mohegan Sun Casino,
Wow.
which is an Indian casino in southeastern Connecticut, the Mohegan tribe. So it's the Mohegan Sun Casino, it's called. And it's going to be October 29th, which is Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. We're going to have probably 150 vendors selling all different paranormal merchandise, books, doing Reiki healings, doing psychic readings, having their paranormal books for sale, and other merchandise, perfumes, crystals, things like that. A lot of different people are going to be there, and celebrity guest speakers as well. We're going to have Ryan Buell from Paranormal State, because Lorraine was really, really close with Ryan. We're going to have Nick Groff and Tessa Groff. Nick was on Paranormal Lockdown. He's on another show now, and his wife does gallery showings, readings. We're going to have, I don't know if you remember him, George. You might be a little too young. The amazing Kreskin.
Oh, come on. We all
He's
know
a
the amazing.
mentalist.
Absolutely.
He's going to be there.
That's amazing.
He's a real nice guy. He's 87 years old now, but he still has it, because we saw a show that he did live not that long ago, and he was awesome. We're going to have a UFO guy. We're going to have somebody talking about Bigfoot, about their adventures with paranormal spirits.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different guest speakers. Oh, Arnie Johnson from the Conjuring 3 case, The Devil Made Me Do It. He was the one that challenged the demonic.
Wow.
David Glatzel had the demonic in him, and
Wow.
Arnie at 18 years old back then says, he's just a kid, 11-year-old kid. Take me on, I'm a man. And that was the mistake that he made. We'll talk about that. He'll talk about that.
Wow.
And we're going to have artifacts from the Occult Museum. We're going to have what you showed, the Annabelle doll, the real one.
Wow.
In a protective case. It's been blessed by a Catholic priest numerous times, and numerous safety precautions to the case, including holy oil and holy water infused in the wood stain, and prayers that are behind their head, and blessed before we move it. Also going to have the shadow doll, which is another one which is very dangerous. Mm-hmm. The satanic idol that was found in the woods, which a high priest in a satanic cult had there in the woods. We're going to have the Conjuring mirror, which is not from any Conjuring movie. It's a Conjuring mirror, a real Conjuring mirror. We're going to have the dinosaur toy. Speaking of toys, George, that David Glatzel in that Devil Made Me Do It case had.
Yes.
And the dinosaur was seen by Ed and Lorraine and priests and others floating across the carpeting, and a voice emanating from around it saying, "You're all going to die." So that's going to be there. A satanic human skull used by Satanists will be on display. And surprise artifact or two will also be there. So it's going to be fun. We're going to be there. Me, Judy, and my wife.
Nice.
My whole New England Society for Psychic Research team will be there. And it's going to be held at a casino, George, which is wild, because you walk in, you walk around, see the vendors. Oh, I want to see that guest speaker at 2:00, but it's only 11. You can go down and gamble, go to the mall that's in there.
Oh.
There's a million restaurants in there that are top notch, have something to eat for lunch or whatever, and then come back in and out, because we're going to stamp everybody's hand. So if anybody's interested, all they have to do is go to NESPR, which is New England Society for Psychic Research, NESPR.ticketbud.com, NESPR.ticketbud.com. We still have tickets. Now, we sold a lot of tickets already. So I don't know how many days it is till October 29th, but we're going to sell them right up to the 29th. But we sold over 3,500 tickets already.
Wow.
That's
That's huge.
But also remember, George, that the place we're having is so large, the expo center part, that we could easily fit 5,000 and 6,000 people in at one time if we wanted to. So it's not like it'll be at a little hotel guest room or ballroom. It's going to be at the casino, which is very, very large and very beautiful too.
Beautiful.
And they got rooms. They got rooms there. You stay at they're really nice rooms, and the restaurants, everything's great there. And we're going to be there available all day. We're going to sell merchandise too, books, T-shirts, stickers, keychains, you name it. We're going to have it there.
Yeah. Very good. So for those watching, it may not be your cup of tea for some of you, and that's fine. But for others, this is a great experience for them to get knowledge and information. It's where I got a lot of information from these type of conventions. You get to interact with other paranormal investigators, maybe share some details on a particular case. They're going to give you warnings, a lot of education, seminars, merchandise. When I mean merchandise, man, there could be some T-shirts, magazines, and so forth. So there's going to be, it's very good on how you look at. Some people were asking in the chat, Tony, is it dangerous for them spiritually to go to this type of event? What do you say to that?
No, because first of all, you're not challenging anything. That's number one. So when you don't challenge something, that's good, right? And number two is we are going to tell them how to protect themselves. I'll tell them right now, just envision yourself in a white light all around your body, all around your aura that you cannot see. You can't see your aura. Only certain psychics can. It's the supernatural glow around your body because God created you. You all have auras. A white light, a halo of protection. Ask God to protect you. Also, we're going to have a Catholic priest that's on our team bless anyone there who wants a blessing. So that's not a problem. You'll be blessed when you come in, and if you want a blessing when you leave, that's not a problem. As long as you're not challenging anything. It's like going and you're not going to be touching anything that's dangerous. If you go to a movie and watch a horror movie or a movie about the paranormal, you're not taking anything back. It's the same thing. It's only when you begin to challenge, begin to want to see things for yourself. Like, I want to see a ghost appear next to me. I want something to happen to me. Go ahead, challenge me if you're real. That's challenging. That's not what you do. And if you do that, you're very foolish.
100%. Some of the comments coming in, incredible. This particular one stood out. We have ran from this type of stuff for far too long. And that's why we are in the place that the world is in now. You are so right. Making this public knowledge is the way to defeat it. I applaud this person who wrote that. I applaud you.
I do too.
That's
I do too, because what he said was, what that person said is absolutely 100% true.
Yeah.
Why do you think the world is in the state it's in today? It's the degradation of society chipping away by the demonic. The demonic is everywhere. Lorraine used to say to me and Ed all the time, there's so many demonic entities out there that you are not going to believe it. And they're always at work 24/7. And their whole goal is to keep you from going to heaven or to keep you from being with God. And to destroy your life, to cause chaos, anarchy. Why do you think these things are happening? These mass shootings, these traumas, these people who don't care about police anymore. When I was a kid, my father used to say, if you're ever in trouble, go find the cop. He'll help you. I'll guarantee you, it's very rare to ever find a parent saying that to a child today, because the parent doesn't believe it. That's how bad our society has gotten. And it's not because the society is always thinking about God. It's because they're never thinking about God, and they're not caring. They're thinking about what? Themselves. And that's what the devil wants you to do. Think only of you. Don't worry about anything. There's no God. They don't want you to think about God, because God is more powerful than he is. See? So that's why it's a slow chipping away at societal values, and that's the worst thing. I'm 71 years old, George, and when I was 15 and 16, 17, 18, 20, the world was a much different place.
Yeah.
If you saw a cop getting hurt, multiple people would be jumping in to help to try to save the cop. Not today. Today they'll take the cell phone out, hoping the cop gets ripped to shreds so they can put it on social media. That's the difference. I watch Facebook. Sometimes the Facebook videos, a lot of violence. I see a lot of people getting beaten up, getting shot, getting stabbed, getting humiliated, cruelty, profanity, and people love it. Why do they love it? They love it until it happens to them. Because people are so, there's something wrong up here. They get knocked out. They get their jaw broken. They don't love it anymore.
Yeah.
Only they want to see misery to others. That's the opposite of what God wants. He doesn't want you to have like misery. He wants you to love other people and be kind. We don't want to do that anymore in society. It's crazy.
Yeah. Tony, people are can't believe it that you're 7 years old. I don't believe it. They're saying, wow, this guy looks amazing for 70. Are you sure you're not just, selling it just for more tickets? Are you sure you're 70? Come on now, Tony.
No, and I look it now because my hair is thin. When my hair wasn't thin, I didn't look so bad. But I look, here's what I am. I'm a 20-footer.
Yeah.
From 20 feet away. If you take a picture of me from 20 feet, people are like, hey, that guy looks pretty good. And then when it gets to 18, 17, it starts to degrade. And then when you get to in person, oh yeah, he's 70. He's 71. But I don't feel it. I don't feel it, George.
I think you look fantastic.
I do push-ups every day.
Good. Me too, actually. That's incredible.
Yeah, I do 60, 70 push-ups at a clip.
Wow.
Just to try to keep tight. But and I try to watch what I eat. And also, George,
amazing.
You got to think young. You start thinking like an old man, you'll be an old man pretty quick.
You'll be an old man. Yeah. It's
pretty
so
quick.
true. You're only as young as you act and feel. I feel like I'm 19, so I'm gonna stick to that. Tony, this has been an incredible conversation. I love having you on the show. It's once a year.
Thanks.
But I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna put this out there publicly. So I put a little pressure on you. I gotta put a little pressure on you. If I was supposedly to organize a private tour, maybe earlier in the day, a special speaking engagement with me and Jessie, and then a private tour to the Warrens Occult Museum with you. Would that be possible for my viewers?
We'll talk about it, Jessie. Yes. Let's put it this way. For you, I'll consider something.
For me,
like that.
Not for
Jessie.
George, just for me. I'll emphasize
you,
that.
Jessie.
Thank you, Tony.
Because you know why, George? Because you're an upstanding guy. I remember how you acted and treated us, and Lorraine, especially when you met us in 2009. You're a real good guy. You took us out to eat. You paid. You drove us around. You showed us things. You were just very, very kind to us, especially Lorraine, because Lorraine was getting up in age then too.
Yeah.
And you were just treating us like, almost like, like you picked up royalty or something.
Well, you are. In my field.
Not really. No.
Yeah, listen, in my field, you had a lot to teach. And again,
we felt good.
You deserve it because you did well. We sold out that event, by the way. The event was sold out.
Nice.
One of the people that's here actually, who actually is currently a script writer working on the movies, a friend of mine from Toronto. He was actually at that event, who's here on the chat after all these years supporting. So he knows who he is. Thank you so much. And I got to say, Tony, I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to reach out to you. We're going to try and make this happen. A special VIP for our viewers. It's not going to be a big group. It's going to be VIP limited in Connecticut. A tour.
Because the museum is closed to the public. Yeah. And not many people have been in there since. A few people privately.
Yes.
But we used to have groups come in a lot every week. That stopped back in 2015. And no one goes in there. So it's very rare to have anyone walk through and get a tour. We've had newspaper people and stuff. Yeah, but not a lot, just a few. So that would be something that I would do for your viewers and you and Jessie.
Thank you.
But not too many other people.
Of course. And I appreciate that. It means a lot, Tony. We're gonna talk about that. I'm thinking about coming up for the Halloween weekend to come and support
the
Expo Paracon. I think I'm gonna come there. Yeah, I'm gonna.
George, if you wanted to, now it's up to you. You think about it. You could
Yeah.
have a table there too. You know, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be occupied all the time.
I'm
but you could have a
thinking
table
about
there.
it. I'm thinking about getting a table there and supporting
Do
and
you have books or merchandise or anything else?
yeah,
or
we have some
flyers?
merchandise and so forth. And yeah, we
Why don't
definitely
you-
do.
If you want a table, they're
Yeah.
normally $200.
Yeah.
But for you, George,
Yeah.
they're $400. No, for you, I'll give you a table.
Oh, wait. How about for me? Do I get it
Well,
for
we'll share.
free?
We'll share the table.
No,
Jesse.
no, George, you have to pay now.
No, for you guys, it'll be a free table.
Thank
We
you.
still have vendor openings. I think so far we have about 80
Please.
vendors.
Okay.
So it can hold like it can hold like 150 or more vendors.
Wow.
So
wow.
I got space. You could set up a table.
Okay.
You could even, if you wanted to,
Yeah.
have a live YouTube broadcast.
Oh, I like this.
It'll be loud there, but so what?
That's
Have
okay.
your
Yeah.
headphones on. Have
Yeah.
headphones.
Yeah.
Have a live broadcast and promote it prior to the broadcast. Hey, on this date, I'm having a live broadcast.
Love
from
it.
the Mohegan Sun Casino.
Yeah.
Blah blah. Right. And as people walk by, you grab them. You grab. Hey, Tone, come here, sit down. I want to ask you a
Yeah.
question.
You know what, Tony?
There's Ryan Buell. Ryan,
Listen.
come here.
I love it. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm doing it. That's it. I'm getting a table at the Paracon. I'm getting it. I'm going to broadcast live Friday, October 28th. We're going to talk to some of your guests.
That's the VIP party, which you're invited to too.
Yeah.
So that's only paid VIP party. That's
Okay.
smaller. But the actual Paracon Saturday, October 29th.
I love it. October 29th. So that's the Saturday. And
Yes.
Sunday is nothing's going on. So, I mean, I'm going to spend the weekend in Connecticut and I'm going to talk to you offline. We're going to get into some stuff. Maybe the possibility for some of our viewers to participate in something special that weekend. Tony, thank you so much. Jesse, thank you for being here. Right after this, we're going to Patreon for a special Q&A. You could maybe talk to Jessie and ask her some questions about the haunted items. Tony, I want to thank you for being here. In closing, is there anything you'd like to share with everybody watching?
Yeah, there is. Be kind to one another, please. Throw out love and not hate, please. Let's change the world.
100%. Thank you so much, Tony. God bless you. Again, the description for Paracon, the convention, tickets available. If you are a vendor, possibly you want to get a table, reach out. There's an email on the page that I sent underneath. Let's get some tickets sold. Come out and support. Get information, get knowledge. There's more than just me and Jesse out here doing the work. There's Tony and a handful of others. The more we get out, the more information, the more education we get, the more doors of light we open to this darkness. Thank you again. Jesse, maybe you want to close with a prayer for everybody?
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for this time, Lord, together. And I thank you for the wisdom and the knowledge that you have imparted to us tonight through Tony. Lord, we just ask a special blessing upon him and his family. We ask that as we go out today, that there would be no fear. I thank you for the love that is in Tony's heart for you, that his life he has spent investing in educating, equipping, and preparing others how to deal with the demonic, how to deal with the paranormal. We ask that you would continue to go forth with him everywhere that he goes, that he would be that light in your name that reaches the world, Lord, and reaches into those darkest places. And we know that your word says that you have prepared some who literally snatch others from the fire. I thank you for that, that Tony is one of those who snatches people from the brink of the fire. So thank you for that. And we just pray this blessing in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, everybody. The after show on Patreon. If you're a member, we'll see you there in a moment. And if you're not, click the link below. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Tony. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we will see you Halloween weekend for Paracon. Thank you again, everybody, and good night.